Chapter 3. Your Boy. The tension left Sky's shoulders when Dylan walked into the cabin 2 hours later, but little had changed with his attitude. He came back with no game and even less patience. Dylan met questions with a frozen stare and silence, so eventually, they stopped. Wade had said Dylan's time in the woods usually calmed him, but not today. Everyone avoided him as much as they could in the tiny house, and still, by nightfall, he acted as surly as the autumn bear Wade accused him of being. Is this the best the man can do? Jesse's gaze tracked Dylan when he moved around the room, and Sky didn't like it. The boy was coming from a bad place, and the strain was disturbing him. Dylan knew that, yet he continued to act like this. She sighed. It was affecting them all. She threw a glance at Wade as he happily read his book. Well, maybe not him. Sky made up her mind. She needed to talk to Wade about the situation to get more insight on the matter, so she waited until he left the cabin and followed him out. I get Dylan's working through something, but the way he is acting. Yeah, he gets like this sometimes, Wade said with a flip of his hand. Apparently, Dylan's moods didn't worry him much. Sky pursed her lips before saying, he's been either growling or oppressively silent, and it's been going on most of the day. How long can this last? Oh, well now, I seen it go on for days. I wouldn't bother Dylan if I were you, he cautioned when he saw her glance toward the cabin. He'll get over it. Wade, this can't continue. It isn't a good atmosphere for Jesse, us, or even Dylan himself. I need to talk to him. Wade scratched his jaw as he drew out his words. Yeah, like I said I wouldn't do that. Sky studied Wade for a minute before kicking a little at the grass beneath her feet. I'm a professional, this is what I do. Her eyes softened as she looked through the window to see Dylan hunched forward on the recliner, forehead leaning against his fisted hands. The man was clearly unhappy. She bit her lip then said, someone will have to go into the bear's den. Wade sighed loudly. Well, remember, I warned you. He shook his head as he walked away. Sky gave Dylan as much time as she could, but once the atmosphere in the cabin was unmistakably oppressive, she became aware she needed to act. She smothered a sigh and headed over to the side of the room Dylan had taken over to work and teetered next to him on the edge of the couch. Her fingers clenched the soft material of the cushion as she scanned his gruff exterior. With a gentle voice, she said, Dylan, can you tell me what happened? A silent stare was all he gave her before he turned back to cleaning his gun. Okay, great. Good start there. We don't have to talk about anything in particular, but is there something we can do to help you get through this? A low, exasperated sigh was her only answer. One of Sky's eyebrows raised, and she clasped her hands together. Still nothing. I have literally never had a child patient act this way, she thought, and this right after his nice little speech to me too. She looked over at Jesse watching his gaze bounce between her and Dylan, his young face pinched and white. Sky couldn't take Jesse looking so scared, and all her schooling left her. She tore her gaze from the boy and fired it at Dylan. We need you to stop acting this way. At last, Dylan spoke, What are you talking about, woman? Really? What am I talking about? She let out a slow breath to calm herself. Please stop. This atmosphere isn't good for any of us. Dylan almost growled at her. Do you think I actually give? Don't even. She shot a glance at Jesse before glaring at Dylan. Jesse had heard a lot of language in his life, but she didn't want that for him anymore. Fine. Dylan roared, leaning in toward her, eyes blazing right back. Sky's calm demeanor gone, she was ramrod straight with fists at her sides. Fine. His fierce stare held Sky's, reading her and answering her at the same time, but whether he was saying, I am man, how dare you deny me, or wow, she is hysterical about this. I guess she really means it, Sky wasn't sure. Before she could say another word, Dylan rose from the couch and again grabbed his bow. This time he also stopped by the door to snap up one of the loaded packs that sat there. He threw it over his shoulder and walked straight out of the cabin, into the darkened woods. Sky's head sank to her hands. "Oh man, you really did it now, didn't ya?" Wade's tone was sarcastic. She raised her wide eyes to him. "Me? I did nothing. He's the one acting juvenile. Told you it wouldn't work," he chided her. "Shut up." Wade gave a big belly laugh. "Little Miss Hoity-Toity puttin' away your going to town manners. Now you're learning." After that, things went from bad to worse. Everyone was worried about Dylan being out in the dark and lonely night, and that also made them short-tempered. Jesse was in charge of the fire this evening. The men had shown him how to keep the small blaze fed and make sure it didn't die down too much overnight. But as they were getting ready for bed, Jesse added a log that was, in Wade's opinion, too large. Wade barked at Jesse. The more Wade talked, the lower the boy slumped. "Don't be so dumb, boy. You know that isn't how to do that. I swear sometimes you are so stupid. You remind me." Sky raced across the room to Jesse's side and laid her arm on the boy's shoulders, pulling him to her. "Stop. You stop that kind of talk right now." Wade gave her a dismissive wave of his hand. This boy has listened to a lot worse than that in his life." Sky let go of Jesse and took a step toward Wade, her voice becoming a mixture of ice and steel. When it came to sticking up for her kids, she never backed down. "I don't care what he has heard before. I care about what he hears now." She punched her finger at Wade. "He is my boy now. And he will not have to endure words like that shouted at him anymore. And anyone who thinks otherwise will deal with me. Do you get that?" Wade was quiet. There was one thing he knew well. You can only push a woman so far. It's like they have a line, an invisible line, they won't let you push them across. It was different with each woman. But when she gets to it, she holds that line. She firmly holds it. He had just found Sky's line. She was giving him the look a woman gives a man when she has had enough of him. Wade didn't understand much about women, but he did know just what to do when a woman gave him that expression. Wade nodded his head once. "Yes, ma'am." The words were barely out of his mouth when behind Sky, the front door opened and closed. She swung around to see Jesse had gone. What was going on now? Sky turned back to give Wade another hard look but found him suitably contrite. Then Sky followed Jesse out the door. The boy stood in the front yard, staring into the darkness. Grass tickled Sky's bare feet as she made her way over and stopped behind him. "Jesse? What is it?" "I ain't your boy," he said. Confusion covered Sky's face. "What?" Quietly, Jesse said, "You told Wade I was your boy." Sky sagged. "Oh, my goodness, the testosterone in this camp is killing me." She thought. Sky studied the dark sky to steady herself before continuing. "I am sorry if that disturbed you, but I was angry and wasn't thinking. I only meant you are in my care right now. Please don't be upset about this." Jesse took a moment before he answered, a look of understanding swept over his face. He turned to Sky, tears in his eyes. Sky softened her voice. "Oh Jesse, please don't be unhappy." Jesse shook his head ever so slightly. "I was mad. But I thought of when you helped me, even when I didn't want it. I thought I wasn't your boy, but I'm just not your boy yet. Someday I will be though. And that doesn't make me sad, it makes me happy." Warmth rushed through Sky. She'd known this boy had come to mean a lot to her, but it surprised her how deeply his words moved her. She stepped up to him with a smile on her face. There was a catch in her voice as she spoke. "That makes me happy too. Well then, I'm sorry, but I have to do this." She bent and pulled him into a hug, one arm around his small shoulders and the other smoothing his thick hair. He suffered through it with as much grace as he could, hardly wiggling at all.